Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Notebook Brewing Company, where if you talk loud into a microphone when you're standing in front of it, it hurts your ears. We are so excited that you are all here today. We have a great panel. You know, film locations are really important. And going to different film locations matter. And today we're going to be... Props are very important. I don't know, was anyone at...
Drink another one.
That was like a callback for the 3 people that were at their panel that I introduced them to yesterday. I swear I thought it was props. I did a whole intro on props, and then they started talking about film locations. And I'm like, oh, next time ask what you're introducing. So, what are you gonna do? We have Jeff Moore.
Hello, everybody. Thank
He
you.
was the
Thank you
prop
for coming.
master. Take a seat.
Okay, I'm going to take a seat. I've been
The
up
prop
very
master for season 2 of a little show called Twin Peaks. We have Vinny Guidera. He has been studying props. If you are not following 12 Rainbow Trout on Instagram, then you don't know what paper clips were used by Ben Horn. We have Stephen Miller. He's gonna try to use that mic and fail because I already did. It's never gonna work. You're gonna wanna use it. Stephen Miller, I consider to be just the heart and soul of this community. Check out his blog. He's having a new book come out in 2027 about the straight story. Ask him about it until he signs the contract that I keep pushing on him to do a book. Who would be interested in Stephen Miller writing a straight story book? Welcome to Film Location / Props. Thank you.
Could I get a thing of water from somebody might be able to get one? Thank you, Scott. I'm just trying.
We're gonna scream and make sure everyone can hear.
Can you hear us okay? I'm having a terrible mic.
That's as loud as that one.
That is it.
So, Jeff Moore's here.
I am glad to be here. Hi, everybody. I just see so many faces here that I know, and some many faces I don't know, and it's so good to see all of you. Thank you for coming. It means a lot to me.
And Jeff, you're always here. You live here.
I live 25 minutes away. When I moved here, I had no idea I was moving here until I went to the falls one day, and there they were, and I went, hey, I live in Twin Peaks! And so it was an unconscious decision. They put me here, so.
I'm gonna turn your mic up a tiny bit.
7 years now, so. And just down the street, so I love it up here. From Los Angeles, and I moved over here from Sedona, Arizona, where I owned a restaurant, and I came up here, and here I am in my retirement. Thank you for coming again. I mean, it's just so great to see all of you.
What was life like in LA?
Life in LA is what life is in LA. It's just a madhouse. I call it chaos. Chaos, because it is chaos. And so, yeah, it's like, you drive. That's LA. Driving.
But how did you get into this business?
I was in a band, and I was on a record label at the time. It was about 1984, I guess. And I was kind of flirting with this woman at the record company, as I do sometimes, do a lot of flirting. And she called me one day and asked if I wanted to be, I knew somebody that wanted to come and help on a film about wrestling and rock and roll. And they said they needed somebody to set up the band because nobody in the set decorating department or nobody in the prop department knew anything about bands or what they needed. So I was hired to be a glorified roadie, and that's how I got into the business. I went in for 2 weeks of work, and I'm still in it. By being here talking to you, I really it was called Body Slam. I mean, I figure it's good luck to be involved in a wrestling movie in anybody's film career because I mean, Barton Fink. I mean, you just think about wrestling and its whole thing, because I think every single thing in life is a wrestling match. You know, there's always somebody's winning, then the bad guy's winning, then all of a sudden the other guy wins, and so wrestling was a good way to come in, I think. So
Twin Peaks has a bit of wrestling.
so does everyday life, I think.
Well, let's get into the Twin Peaks talk.
Oh, let's do it.
We're all here. We were all planning to be here already when we got the very sad news that David Lynch had passed, and I think this is a cathartic weekend that we all needed, and it's very fortunate timing that we were planning to gather together already. Why don't you tell us about how you first met David?
Well, I walked into, I got back, I finished a film. I was filming in New Orleans, and I was at the prop house that I normally prop every single show I ever worked on out of, called Alice Mercantile. Alice Mercantile was on La Brea Boulevard, and it was established in 1908, right at the beginning of filmmaking. It was a mercantile store. You can get anything you needed. And I was at Alice, and I met a person who I'd worked with before, and he said, "Hey, I've got the phone number to Twin Peaks. I think they're looking for a prop master." And so one thing led to another, and that actually led to me getting the job. Let me tell you a real quick one here on that. I walked into Occidental Studios, where I had already been set up for an interview. And I was greeted with this wonderful line from the producer, who came right up to me and said, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here for the prop master interview." And he goes, "I've already hired that position." And so I said, "Oh shit," in my head, this ain't gonna go well. And so one thing led to another, and I got the job, and I had the opportunity to meet David for the first time, because before we do anything, we always try to get a pre-meeting with the director, because you go into a production meeting, that's where the whole crew sits around, and we talk about what we're doing and what everybody's responsibilities are. And so I met David through that pre-meeting. And in that pre-meeting, I walked into his office. Now, Occidental had an upstairs area, all wood panel, very Twin Peaks feeling. And, you know, and I walked in there, and I walked into his office, and it was chaos everywhere. And it was madness in the room. There was this person over there, and he was there, and people were talking to him here, and the phones were ringing. And I'm the new guy. And I'm nervous. I'm meeting friggin' David Lynch, right? And so I walk into the office in that wonderful chaos. I call filmmaking chaos. It's like life, you know, it's chaotic, and then out of that chaos comes the order that we all, you know, hope to find. And I'm sitting there waiting my turn, because everybody else is coming at David. And I said to, finally Sabrina Sutherland came up to me, she goes, "Come over and meet David." So I'm basically in this room of madness, and finally we get to have our moment. And he introduced himself to me, and I introduced myself. Sabrina actually did that. And I shake his hand, and that's when I heard his voice live for the first time. And I went, "Oh my God." Because we normally think when we meet a star or something like that, you say, "Hey, you're going to be, I thought you were taller," you know, and it was David's voice. And that's when I first had my introduction with him. And in those first moments when you meet somebody, you kind of know what's going on, you know that there's a feeling that happens, you know, and if it's bad, you know it in a millisecond. It's like meeting somebody who you're attracted to or something. You know in a millisecond if that's happening or not. And I was not rejected by David's energy. So that's my introduction to David Lynch. And it went on from there.
So Occidental Studios is in Van Nuys. That is the set where Twin Peaks, the TV series, was created, set up. It's known as City Studios today. But you can see some of that wood paneling to talk about a film location. They used it for the parole hearing, where Hank Jennings, you can see that kind of wood paneling piece, that's it.
Yes.
But here we are, we have sets, and I heard it's like a Twin Peaks land. There's this set here, this set here. Well, as a prop master, what's the difference between a prop master and someone who decorates sets?
That is probably the biggest thing that people get wrong, because they'll go, "Oh, I love that chair over there, and it's such a great prop." And I'm going, "Wait a second. A prop is a hand prop. A prop is anything an actor touches, reads, shoots, eats, carries, anything that we do in real life. Not a chair, not a cabinet, not a refrigerator. It is handheld. So a prop is essentially a hand prop. And they are extremely essential in everything we do in film and television. And I landed in that world, so.
I want to follow up on that because there's a few Twin Peaks set decorations that unexpectedly end up handled. The one that comes to mind is the giant ice cream cone at the Double R, which is sitting on top of the ice cream machine through the bulk of the series, and then suddenly in Diane Keaton's episode, it's down on the floor being scrubbed. So when a set dressing ends up handled by an actor, does that cause chaos between the prop department and the set dressing?
Yeah, we all say, "Hey, that's your deal now. You take care of that." No. I had a wonderful on-set dresser that I worked with throughout Twin Peaks. His name is Michael Malone, and some of you might know Michael Malone. And Michael was that guy, and he and I and Rich and Stefan, who are my two assistants on the show through the season, was we liked each other. We got along, and that is number one when you're dealing with a situation like you're asking about. When does a set dressing become a prop? Diane, when she, by the way, one of my favorite directors to work with through the whole series was Diane Keaton. And her and I had that moment when we first met that this was going to be okay, that she trusted me. And so she said, "Jeff, I want her to have, to use that ice cream cone, and I want her to do this, that, and the other." And so it became a prop at that moment. And that was, at that point, we reset it, we took care of it. That was when a set dressing becomes a prop.
So I know occasionally you will need duplicate props in case something happens to them.
Not occasionally.
Not occasionally. Always?
If you don't have at least two of what you're doing, whatever it might be, you have to have. You never know when somebody's going to drop something and break it. I'm writing a book right now that I hope Scott Ryan is going to be my publisher on. It's called "Who Propped Laura Palmer," and and she. And we were, what was the question again? Help me.
Duplicate props.
Okay. We were doing something, and I had an example in my book where I said, well, a director or an actor may say, "I love that teacup over there. Okay, I got to use that cup." And I said, "I've only got one." And so, and don't worry, it's going to be fine, and then it's going to be okay, we're going to shoot it. And then we shoot it, and camera rolls, and we get it, and then, okay, we're going to do the turnaround, which means camera's going to the opposite side to shoot in a different direction. And, crash, boom. Hey, Jeff, we just broke the cup, and that is why you always get multiples on everything you do.
And knowing that makes me so nervous when I see something that's obviously an antique or hard to come by. And I know those ice cream cones are mid-century, and they're fragile. So when that ends up down on the floor as a prop, knowing you probably didn't have a duplicate of that one, it makes me nervous.
No, and that's when I throw it back to Michael Malone. Oh, that's your deal now, So anyway, yeah. That's a good question.
I think people here we are. You know, they did production here in Washington State. They had several weeks of filming, and they go back, and then you go to series, right? And then now you're in season 2. The timing of having to find these things was quick.
Yeah.
Like you had just days, probably hours, to find certain things. How did that work for you?
Well, interesting thing about when I came into Twin Peaks, remember, we did 7 episodes essentially. The pilot, which was 2 hours. And then they got picked up for 6 more. So there were 7 shows. In that seven show period, they had 3 prop masters. I was number 4. 3 prop masters, I'll call it a department head, in that short of a span. So I walked into a chaotic mess of props. And I write about this in the book, about how I met the final prop master before my season started. And that was Dave Robinson, who also became our painter, our scenic on set. And he handed me a box, a banker's box full of all these props. We were all, and as a prop master, you really take control and try to be organized and marked, and everything is for this scene or that scene. Put a Polaroid, whatever it is, just to keep everything. I opened this box, and it was a mess. Because David told me, Dave, the on-set painter, told me I never wanted to be the prop master. I didn't want the job. And so, that is kind of...
but organization's key.
Key, and it's to everything. Notes. Always tag, scene numbers, actors' names, Wyndham Earl's wallet that he pulls out in the diner when he's reading the letter for Shelley. I sort of got a peek at it last night when I was watching, and I saw a little thing inside there, and it said Wyndham's wallet. That's what you do. You hide your markings, but if you don't mark it, you're going to lose it. So you can't lose it.
Speaking of hiding markings, there are a lot of branded props that you blacked out or covered up the logos, mostly very effectively. In VHS clarity, very, very effectively. In Blu-ray clarity, perhaps not so much. What are some things that you've noticed rewatching now that we have clarity that we never would have expected 30 years ago that make you say,
Let me tell you what the secret was on set. And this is what every single department did when you were dealing with, I don't care if it was hair, makeup, whatever it was. You have, what's this? Sorry? Branded. So, we had a saying on set. Okay, looks good? Yeah. Now squint your eyes. Squint your eyes. Now that meant that's what the camera's going to see. That's what we all figured out. Everybody in every department, that was the answer to that time in film, 1990, was, okay, squint your eyes. Oh, it's perfect. And now the eyes are wide open.
Well, to people like Stephen and I who research these things and try to identify them, when we find a brand name on screen, we're thrilled, because that does the work for us. But yesterday, as we're watching the Twin Peaks pilot during Cinema Unwrapped, we see a McDonald's cup deep in the background, and Jeff's sitting next to me, and he turns and goes,
Bad. That is the on-set dresser right there. That is where, see, that's just, I found them, not prop, because an actor brought that cup of coffee into the set, and I think the most recent one we might all be familiar with is the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones. And that is, I always call them no-nos. And that is something that is very, 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 I mean, some people, I've worked with other prop masters who are like so scared of it because production will come down on you and you could get in trouble or lose a job. So very important. We called it Greeking. So we Greeked it out, and that was the term we used. We didn't know anything else but the term, you got to Greek that, you know. And so that's what you did. And the one thing that I got away with, and I did get called on it by production, and that was the Coca-Cola bottle. Okay, now you see the Coca-Cola bottle show up in a lot of places in all the episodes. Well, there was one, I think, from the first season in the box that I got. And then I went and grabbed 2 more at the prop house at Ellis. And Coca-Cola saw one of the I guess the first airing, saw the Coke. They became like crazy Twin Peaks fans, Coca-Cola did. And I got a call.
So did David.
Yeah. Let me tell you what happened with David and Coca-Cola, because I brought the representative to the set, and I was giving cases and cases of Coke, you know, any kind of product they were selling, and I'd give it to craft service for the crew, and I'd take 5 or 6 cases home and put in my garage, you know. But I got a call from production upstairs, and they said, hey, you put a Coke bottle in there, and Dad, I go, I did not. I said, if you look, there is no label on that Coke bottle, because it's the old original Coke bottle that was all embossed. So if it had the red and white color on it, I was in deep shit, you know. So, and it did. Excuse my language. I'm going to say these words. They're just the way I talk. So yeah, and that was my biggest catch. And Coca-Cola was so in love. The representative would show up all the time when David was there. And one day, the Coke representative came in and he goes, Jeff, I got something for David. And he goes, come here, I'm going to show it to you. And there was a truck in the back. And there was a vintage 1950s, maybe late 40s Coke machine that distributed that original bod. He goes, this is for David. And I went, wow. So all of a sudden I was David's buddy, you know. At least at that level, you know, or as close as you can get to David. And he just, and the guy, the representative for Coca-Cola, just loved David. And he gave him I don't even know how much that machine would cost and what its value is now, but beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
There's nothing like 2 Cokes and a cookie.
There you go. Oh, yeah. And so, you know, and so Coke, I brought it in by just putting those bottles out there. And I didn't know anything about David loving Coca-Cola. I mean, I didn't know any of that. I was too busy. I had too much on my mind to know anything about that kind of stuff when he was, you know, on a personal level. So.
Speaking of food, we get several scenes in Twin Peaks with food being prepared, moved around, munched on. First of all, who cooks it? And then if somebody's munching on a carrot, do you have a whole bag of them for continuity purposes?
Now, Richard Beamer, one of my favorite prop actors on the show, he always would find me when I came and he goes, Jeff, I'm going to do this today and I need this, can you get it? So he was like, he always wanted to do stuff. He either was playing with a cigar or he was doing this or he'd take his glass. All this is props, even his glasses, they're props. Because original glasses were like monocles and stuff, but there's a monocle story in here too. And so, you know, it's one of those things where, I don't know, what was it again? Food. I had a food stylist. Her name was Cindy Lambert, is Cindy Lambert. And so I met Cindy just at the beginning of Twin Peaks. And I knew the diner was there, and I knew I was facing a lot of food. And I hired someone, and if I couldn't, now here's a good food scene. The eggs, where the smiley face and the, you know, that whole thing.
This is at the Blue Pine Lodge, Pete Martell
Correct.
and Andrew Packard sharing a moment with a
About
silly
the time
face
the
on-
black box
on a
shows
face
up.
of,
Yeah.
a plate of breakfast.
Right. Okay, I was offset. One of the things about a prop master is he's never there. You're always shopping, you're always out, you're always getting. That's what I called it. So that was Rich and Steph and my 2 assistants. Were taking care of that scene. So, food stylist is not involved here. Go to the catering truck. Catering truck is right outside the doors. You go up there and ask for anything. And there's another good story on that. But I remember coming back to set, and we'd take Polaroids in those days. Everything was on a Polaroid. And Stefan goes, take a look. And he was very proud of it. He did this whole thing with the eggs and everything, and it was just a wonderful thing. So we went to catering, or I shopped the night before and brought whatever to the set, i.e. donuts, i.e. pie, all those things. And I got most of my pies from a wonderful place I lived right across, literally across the street from, called Dupar's. Now, you all may have heard David talk or other people talk about Dupar's. That's where him and Mark actually originally met to start this whole collaboration with each other, which turned into eventually Twin Peaks. And they made pies like you wouldn't believe. Best example of their pies is when Norma puts out the tray of pies before the Miss Twin Peaks thing, and you see those 3 pies there, beautiful pies, gorgeous pies. And with
there's
that,
a trading card of those pies.
There is.
Could
Is that
be.
scratch and sniff?
Yeah, sadly, there is. Sadly, Dupar's, that location doesn't exist anymore.
Dupar's is gone. We would probably be seeing David Lynch tributes like we did with Bob's Big Boy and the Tweeds.
Yeah.
We'd probably be seeing those at Dupar's.
I could literally walk out my front door at my little condo and trying to just lean my head out this way, and I saw Dupar's. That's how close I lived to it. So that was my pie stop.
Is this the condo with the address that appears on a piece
It
of mail?
is Hoffman Street, 11 something Hoffman Street. Yes, I watched that scene. It makes me cringe every time I see it. But again, it was a squinting the eyes. I'll never see that.
Yeah, it's a blink and you'll miss it. But there's a piece of filler mail addressed to Jeff Moore.
I know that guy.
We have some screen used props here. One of them I got from you, but we didn't know where it came from initially.
Okay.
I had to comb very thoroughly to find this on
He's
screen.
really good at this, by the way.
This piece of mail, against the odds, I was able to find it on screen in the first season. So this would have been something that Dave made.
Right.
It's in a scene in Jacques' apartment. They're
Oh, is that
sorting
where it
through his
shows up?
mail, looking in his
Okay.
cupboard. But there's a handwritten address on this, and we did talk about this a little. The postmark is handwritten in pencil.
That's because it was filler. And that's what we did. We had so many things like files and different things that you have hero pages on. That's what we called anything that could possibly be seen on camera. We call anything on camera hero. And then I always had a drawer. I had a filing cabinet in my prop truck, and in that, paperwork is essential to a prop team and to a prop master. So anywhere that you went, in fact, I had just come from New Orleans, and I was shooting in a courthouse there, and I just grabbed boxes of courthouse papers that they were ready to throw away. So paperwork is important, and so this turned out to be something that was obviously made as a filler, and just in case the camera sees it like they saw Jeff Moore in Hoffman Street, you want to have something that represents what it was.
The writing is not legible
Of
on
course not.
screen. I was able to match it with the stamp and the envelope size because it's a little bit
That
smaller.
is
than
going
the
deep
other.
right there. That is going deep right there.
But that's what we love to do.
So
I
we
know
love
it.
to find these things, right? Because again, it gives context. Somebody could, want to know what this is or what that is. A lot of times, things are called out, right? That are in the script that
Yes.
you have to find. And when you're finding them, you're either buying them or you're most likely renting, right? It's not actually you're going to return these props to that particular prop house.
Yeah, you know, and that's what a prop master has. They call it his kit. Now, your kit is, and I write about this in the book as well. The kit is everything to a prop master and his team. There's nothing like being asked for something after 9 o'clock at night or before 5 o'clock in the morning any day. And they say, Jeff, we need this. And you don't want to say no, and you have a truck full, box after all marked, office supplies, kids' toys, you know, all these different things up there. And if you don't have a decent kit, you are going to find yourself in trouble because there's nothing open after 10 o'clock anywhere. So, you know, that's what that is.
There was no 24-hour shop. There was no Walmart. No anything.
End of the day, prop houses were closed at 5 or sometimes 6, and you know. And then if you couldn't find it at a market, hopefully you find a drugstore that's open. If you got something that you just don't have, you know, you're on the run, and that's what I did. I was the runner for my department. Left the guys on set. They dealt with whatever was in the script. And then all of a sudden a curveball is thrown at you and you get in your car. In those days, you drove, you had a pager and payphones. And that's how we communicated. And that's how everything went.
I have a business idea. A prop house that's the equivalent of like an emergency room. Open 24 hours, costs twice as much, but has everything in it.
Oh my God, the way filmmaking is going now, I would say that would be a tough one. Because, you know, essentially one of the things I also write in the book about is filmmaking and what we call the process of filmmaking. And it hasn't changed in 125 years. It is the same as they did when they were rolling their cameras like this, as it is now with their digital. And that is essentially a camera, a prop, or whatever the scene calls for, a script, an actor, and if it's needed, lighting. Camera, lighting, sound, that is filmmaking. The rest of it is all in the words, and when you read a script, when I read a script and the first paragraph says, we're in a neighborhood, XX is sitting in his car looking out his window, and he's watching he sees a mailman walk by. And as the mailman walks by, he looks to his right and sees a lady walking her dog. Okay, so that's your description. In that description, there is so much. I call it reading between the lines. And the first AD and the second AD, those are the assistant directors, are the ones who create that world. And they turn to our department to make that real. So I already know I need a mailman. I already know I need a dog's leash and a dog, because dogs become props. And it's just, we are so deep in the shit in the department, in our department, because we do everything. And then there's the things that are not mentioned in that particular thing. And for me and for my department, because, okay, I want a guy in that yard over there watering his yard. And then I want to have these kids go by on a bike, and then, so I always had a bike on my truck, at least one, which we hated to have on our truck because it took so much space. But that's what you call reading in between the lines, and that's where we get into soft props that I talked about, where they're not scripted and you sort of create, and they're thrown at you. But if you don't know what it's like to be in a neighborhood, and you have to think that way. If you're not thinking that way, things, and they throw, hey, I need a guy over here with a garden hose to go out in his yard and doing this. I have it. It's already there. I don't have to shop that. I can get it in an instant for them.
So when you say soft props, are we talking props that are more to build out and flesh out the character, to make that feel more real, more so than function?
Sometimes, yes. Now, here's a classic soft prop. Pins, lapel pins, and different things like that. That's a prop. Believe it or not. Name tags, a prop.
Got a few of those here.
Yeah, we do have a few here. And I would say probably the key soft prop to me were all the American flag lapel pins that you see on my agents, FBI agents. The one lapel pin that I had no control over and didn't touch and didn't even ask about was Dale's Tibetan thing. That was not me, that was wardrobe. I never had anything to do with that, and from the beginning, that never crossed into my world. But a soft prop, and the simplest way to put it would be those, something like that. Folded newspaper on a table and a diner, for somebody deep in the background. But I always considered background props, unless they're described in the description of what we're doing. Like I said, the mailman, the girl, the lady with her dog, they all become soft to me. So that was my term. It's not an official term. It's something I created.
We like the inside baseball. It's specific to
very
Chinese.
inside.
I love it. That pin you mentioned, Dale's pin, it ends up in the return being an FBI pin.
Oh, does it?
But in the original series, it's a crane. It's a little crane.
Is that what it is? I never paid attention to it because I didn't have the thing I had to deal with Dale or Kale is his thing is every day he came to set, and I would give him his watch, and I would give him Diane, I gave him that, and he wore his wedding ring on his pinky, because I think it was his wife's wedding ring, which we give up in the first episode, and then I did that with every single actor that came in that was a scripted actor. I have a baggie, sometimes large, sometimes small, with their name on it, and inside that, their wristwatches, their glasses, their rings, whatever they may have for that character. And every time they come to set, we're ready for it. And one of the key ones was Margaret. Margaret had the log, we all know that, and her glasses. Now, her glasses were in my world, and she had to have those glasses the minute she became Margaret. And she became Margaret the minute she pulled into that studio at Occidental in the Valley and opened her door. Catherine disappeared, and Margaret was there. And she was one of those, and I loved her for that.
She was such a sweet lady.
Oh, you have no clue how sweet she was.
Did you ever handle the log?
The first time I met the log, let me tell you, I met the log. David had handed everything over to me, Dave, the prop master before me, and the log was one. Now, the log was in its own box, wrapped in this beautiful little blanket, so I finally get my prop truck, and I'm down at Ellis Mercantile, because I parked my truck there to prep the show and put everything, because everything comes out of that place, and I needed my truck right there. So I'm on the truck. My assistants have not started yet. I'm by myself. And I pull the box down, I had this old-fashioned Coke machine at the end of my truck that was a top loader. You reach in, grab your stuff. I open the box, and I see the blanket, and I pulled out the log. And the log said, see my tongue in my cheek here. The log said, "Hello? Is this a dream?" And I swear to God, that was what happened for me in the log. And then, that's when, after I met the log, is when I met Catherine, who introduced herself as Margaret. And we introduced her to the log. And I told her, she said, "Jeff, can you have it here on the Coke machine so when I get here, I can get my glasses and my log?" And I said, "No, what I'm going to do is put it in the dressing room so that when you do get here, it will be there." And she goes, "You would do that?" Of course I would. I did that with a lot of actors. So
I was hoping the log had its own dressing room. I'm imagining it sitting in the makeup chair, getting powdered.
She demanded that nobody touch the log, though. She demanded that nobody have anything to do but us, the three guys. And she wanted it every night to be put to bed, in her words, wrapped inside of her blanket and put away. And so that's what we did. We gave it all the respect she wanted for it. So that's what you have to do with your actors when they become part of, their props become part of their character. And she was a joy, a joy.
Speaking of personal props, there are 2 items that we have here that have personal attachment to you. One of them is a name tag with your own name. I think that this one over here, there's a bellhop wearing a name tag that says Jeff Moore.
My appearance in Twin Peaks, by the way.
That's your cameo. But we've got another over here that looks identical to the Great Northern name tags, but it was used as a key ring. And there's a name taped over that you can see when you look up close. You couldn't see
Is
it
it
on
Tony?
screen. It is.
That's my
Will you tell us?
sister. I would have to make name tags, and your names are very sensitive in film, and you really have to, addresses, names. We'll talk about that when we talk about Circle Brand. So yes, and so I use Stefan's name, I use Rich's name, I use my name, I used my sister's name, I used any name that I knew that if they saw it, they wouldn't get mad and or come after the show to, and sue us or whatever, say, I want money because you used my name and it's, So, names, addresses, very, very sensitive, very sensitive. Book titles. You cannot use a book title without getting clearance. And if you don't get clearance, you have to get public domain. Hence, sometimes a great notion. The book, that Piper Reeves. Great expectation. Thank you.
So let's talk about Circle Brand. You have this logo. What is the genesis of Circle Brand?
Now, everybody remembers when Andy finds the cocaine in the boots, right? Everybody remembers that scene, and Andy steps on a plank and hits himself in the head. Brilliant scene. Love that scene so much. Well, we were out there shooting at that location. Can you guys tell me where that was?
Yeah, that would have been outside the Johnson house
Yeah.
in Southern California.
Okay. Yeah.
Stephen would know precisely.
in Malibu Lake Mountain Club.
Is that where?
In Bora Hills.
That's where we were.
Another film location. So yeah, Scott wasn't wrong. But yeah, that's the old Johnson house.
So we're out there. We're out there for a couple of days, right? We're shooting a few things. Albert arrives, and all this stuff is going on. And David has got we call it Video Village. And Video Village is where the monitor is, where essentially the only people that should be in Video Village, but it becomes it looks like this sometimes, is the script supervisor and the director. Okay,
Corey
and
Glasser.
then yes, and I also Corey, and we had so many script supervisors though. I always provided a chair for the director of photography, and that was Frank Byers. And so one day we were out there in Malibu shooting this scene, and David had a way of getting my attention, and his way of getting my attention was to yell out, "Jeff! I need you here now!" And so he called me over, and I came to his chair, and he goes, "Okay, I need you to make me a logo for the bottom of these boots," but he wanted it originally on the heel. That was what he asked me for first. And he goes, "And it has to be Circle Brand." Now, the true story to Circle Brand goes back to what I just said. Names are important. It has to be generic. I think David, and I talked to Harley Payton yesterday about it. I asked him, "What do you remember about it?" He goes, "Pure David." And what somebody had told him, and I would have to say, it was the script supervisor, said, "You just can't name something out of nowhere, and so he said, "Okay, what about," and he came up with Circle Brand. Now, he said, I need you to make this tag for the bottom of the shoe and da-da-da-da. So I knew that Rich, my assistant, my first assistant, and Stefan would be considered my second, but to me they are equals. I knew as he's talking to me, my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. How am I going to do this? He wants it now. How am I going to do this? So I knew that Rich could pull it off as long as we had the design, you know. So he goes, I tell David that. I said, we'll get it done, and Rich is our man. Rich is going to be the guy who's going to make this happen for us. And the next thing I hear is, Rich! And Rich comes walking over, and of course, all we want to do is make David happy. You know, that's the way everybody on the crew was. We just wanted to make David happy. We wanted to give him what he wanted. And there's 2 stories that I have on that, but this is Circle Brand. And actually there's 3. And he said, Rich, and they sit there, and I'm standing back now. Now it's Rich's show, Rich and David's show. And I'm just there to make sure that what I hear and knowing what Rich has to do, that I have everything Rich needs to make this happen. So I'm listening to him and David talk about it. And David said, I want it to be like this. I want the word circle across, and I want brand, and it has to have a circle in it. And so here we are. And, you know, Rich has got his notepad out, because we take notes. Sort of having, you know, kind of like this, you know, to David, and he goes, yes. So, okay, David, yes, we back out and go back to make this happen. So we're walking to the prop truck, and I'm going, what do you need, Rich? What do you need? And he said, I need something to put this on. You know, I need something to make this stick to the bottom of the boot. So my job was to go out and find the square, the right thing that didn't, had to look like rubber, you know, it was cardboard. So Rich goes on the truck, I go back to set, help with whatever scene we were doing. I think we were doing all that stuff around the cabin and there. And I go back to the truck at a certain time to go check on Rich. You need anything? What can I do to help you? And I had already found him the piece of cardboard. I went to the grip truck because they have all kinds of cardboard and stuff. And I walked on the truck, and there was Circle Brand. And this is what he did. This is a brilliant, brilliant prop that he pulled together for us and David. He took peel and stick letters that we all get, you know, how to peel and stick, you know, like that. We had all sizes, okay? So Rich took this piece of cardboard I brought over to him. He was such a great commercial artist and a handwriter, and he put the Circle Brand together, and then he opened up one of our tool drawers, found a washer in it, stuck it onto it, and Circle Brand was born. The most generic name you could come up with. And it was just, I looked at Rich and I went, oh my God, that's brilliant. And then we painted it with spray paint. And so essentially it's cardboard with this peel and stick letters and a metal washer. That is how that logo, that is props on the fly right there.
And you stacked the letters.
Yes, it was brilliant. Rich, he lives in Thailand now. I wish he was here. Yes, he stacked letters. He put 2 on top of each other so that it looked like it was rubber coming off of this thing. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. That's what you do as a prop person in the moment, and you are under pressure. I can't even tell you the pressure that is coming on you, because tick, 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 tick of the set clock never stops. It's always in your head. So, Circle Brand is born.
And I'm sure you guys have noticed we've got a table full of shirts over there.
Yeah,
Jeff painted a small batch of Circle Brand shirts.
With the help of Vinny, he helped me, convince me that what we were doing was sticking to the logo, because I had some fantastic Circle Brand story in my head about Circle Brand being in Twin Peaks since this wonderful Russian Jewish family came all across from Russia, ended up in the Pacific Northwest, and their name was Scott Ryan is helping me come up with a great name because they changed it to Circle and all these things. Because I was trying to convince him that I wanted to do my logo, and he would say, "No, stick to the page, authentic." Yes. And he won, and that was proper.
It's not a battle.
No, it wasn't a battle, and that's not the way I mean that. You know that. I love you so much.
But it's not a battle on set, right?
There's no time.
You're trying to find a solution that's going to work.
And it has to be done in the tick. And the clock never stops. Never stops. Especially for a director and especially for a first AD. They are under the gun. David hated it. Hated it. I'm sure you've seen him with yelling, "How come I can't do that? Why don't we get enough time?" And he always wanted to explore the dreamy and always wanted to explore. And there's always that clicking of the clock.
Well, that's where the brilliance of simplicity comes in.
Yes, and that's what Circle Brand essentially was. Simplicity in the moment. And enough talent behind that idea to make it happen.
I know you wanted to say a few words about collaborating with the wardrobe department. Speaking of shoes, we had this is the first year we've had a Twin Peaks fashion panel earlier today. I'm sure some of you were there. It was very cool. Lauren Lowell and Laura Haskell shared insight and details on show's wardrobe.
I met her yesterday too.
Yeah, they're both wonderful. And you collaborated with the wardrobe department in some areas.
I'll tell you, I really collaborated with the wardrobe department. Here's one everybody here will know. Okay, Laura Palmer's sunglasses, right? How brilliant were those, right? They just when she put those glasses on, all of a sudden, everything changed in that scene. Well, there is a story behind that mess. And it was a mess. What happened was way before anything came to on set, we always had production meetings. And you read the script, I knew that Laura Palmer sunglasses was my deal. I had to deal with it. That was me. Well, the wardrobe department had a lot to do with her look. Everything that was attached to almost every female actor on our show, I had to collaborate with wardrobe on, because we cross dimension all the time. That wrist right there is that piece of jewelry is a prop, believe it or not. Heather Graham's cross is a prop. All those little things. So I go straight to Sarah Markowitz, and way before the production meeting, I said, "Okay, what do you think about the glasses? What should I get?" And she goes, "Don't worry about it, Jeff. I got it. I've already talked to David about it. We got this covered. You're not involved anymore." Okay, great. And she brought in, we always had, for wristwatches and glasses, we have different people that we'd come to. We'd call and say, "Come to the set and bring all these choices for us." So she had, we called her the glasses lady. Her name was Linda. And Linda came to the set, and she had tray after tray of glasses and glasses. Well, David had looked at them. We're literally moments away from shooting this scene. I was already busy. I had cafe going on. I had the kitchen. I had waiters and wait. I was busy. All of a sudden, I hear, "Jeff!" And I go, What could it be? What could this be? Well, David looked at maybe 30 pairs of sunglasses, did not like one of them. And it was just Sarah, who was true Twin Peaks. You see it in her designs and everything. It was just, she really was deep into this. Really messed up, because she should have shown David a week before that. David, we'd been together. And she could have showed him any time. And all of a sudden I'm going, she walks up to me as I'm walking to David's chair. We meet halfway. And she says, David hates every single one of the glasses I gave him. And then she's telling me that, trying to not show that she's talking to me about it. David, it was just a game we all played. And there's a good one with Lenny when he scratches his face about that one. And so I said, okay, I'm in no trouble. I'm okay. You know, I was on this from the beginning. I gave it up. All of a sudden, David sitting in his chair, and he's just mad. He's fuming, you know, just himself, within himself. And he said, Jeff, bring me every single pair of sunglasses you got on your truck, and I need them now. And I said, okay. And so I go, shit, again. That was my common answer to anything David said to me, because he always put me in that shit mode. And only because I was going, what am I going to do? And there's a great story about Laura's murder that we'll get into. So I run to my truck. Okay, so I've got all these Ray-Bans and promo this, but I also I had a drawer on my prop truck that was probably that wide, about that deep, and it was my glasses drawer. And I had row after row after row after row of glasses. And then I had all these really cheap sunglasses, right? Because if it wasn't a Ray-Ban, which was really cool, because they gave it to me for free, you know, I went to Venice Beach in California and just bought, you know, for background people. And I was thinking to myself, again, shit. And I was thinking to myself as I'm walking to the truck, I've got nothing. And I asked Sarah before I walked off the stage, what have you been showing him? What does he hate? I don't want to duplicate anything he's already seen and turned down. She goes, anything cat eye. And I'm going, a lot of my things have her cat eyes. So I bring all this crap sunglasses to him. And I brought him some Ray-Bans and different things like that. But I know he'd already seen that. And he looked at everything I had, and I'm standing there, literally with my drawer from my prop box in my hand, saying, this is what I got, David. And he hated them all again. Then, all of a sudden, he reached out and found the worst pair of sunglasses I thought I had in the kit, besides a shitty pair of red ones that I didn't even bring out. And he had been trying on glasses on Laura Flynn for a while. And he pulled these out and he goes, try these on. And they're sitting in their director's chair. And she put them on, and I swear to God, it was like, and it was this moment of like the whole shift, and that happens on camera too, where these sunglasses scratched up, one arm wouldn't close, delicate pieces of shit glasses that I had, and there was only one pair. So David loved them. He was happy. He let go of that, and I now have to turn to Laura, and Laura, and I had just dealt with her because I gave her her lighter for the first time and her cigarettes for the first time, and we had a moment, but now I'm coming back to her and telling her, listen, you cannot close this arm on these. There's only one pair of these, and you have to be careful. And she looked at me with a big old smile. I got you, honey. Don't you worry about a damn thing. And if you watch that scene now, you're going to watch how she deals with them. Little insider there. You're going to see how gentle she was. She does try to close them, but something in her brain told her, no, you can't do that. And you could feel that it was if you're trying to close them, it's resisting you. So, and she knew there was only one, and just the wrong move, those things would snap. And then we were extremely up shit creek at that point, you know. So that is, I love that story, actually. That's another big part of the book. Yeah.
So I think we're at about time. Are there any final thoughts you want to share? And I think Dory would like to say something. after we wrap
Oh,
up. But
oh, absolutely. I just, I don't know, there was so much that went on. As I was watching some episodes last night, and I think that I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, but the whole thing with David and myself was like, just, he can be so hard with his crew, you know, and like he demanded everything, yeah, and we rushed, and that's why I made 22 episodes when there was already 3 people who could not cut it, could not make it, and so that to me was probably, sorry, that was beautiful. I was accepted by David, and he liked my work, so that was
sometimes things line up perfectly.
yeah, you never know, right?
Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and thanks to Jeff for sharing these stories with us. And of course,
I love
to
you
Notebook
all.
Community for hosting us in the Real Twin Peaks. Oh, okay. David Skiba from Notebook would like to share some more.
Okay, cool. Sure. I was going to say thank you so much for coming. Thanks a lot.
Love those words. Well done, sir. Well done.
So the brewery here has a special beer this weekend called the Hops.
for you guys.
The hops are not what they seem. So make sure you pick some up. They've been so kind to us, so let's return the kindness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
And if you'd like to pick up a shirt, come see us over there.